Hello everyone and welcome back to Rebooted MCU. Today we are here with Phase 4 Part 4. We have a big episode today, so without any further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The fourth project of Rebooted MCU Phase 4 is Captain America: Serpent Society. The movie opens up inside an auditorium filled with men in uniform. We see an elderly man standing at the front of the stage, giving a speech. We can't hear what he's saying until suddenly the audio picks up. Now, it is my honor to welcome to the stage to share their experiences on the battlefield, Captain America and Bucky Barnes. The crowd cheers as we see Captain America, played by Chris Evans, and Bucky Barnes, played by Sebastian Stan, walk onto the stage as Cap takes a microphone and says, "Well, I appreciate the warm introduction, but Bucky and I should really be the ones applauding for you all, and especially for all of your years of service." As the crowd laughs, we cut to a man sitting in the audience. He has two different colored eyes, and his nameplate has Sergeant Payne on it. The camera zooms in on his face as the title card of the movie pops up. We then cut to after the speech as we see retired U.S. soldiers standing in line waiting to get a picture with Cap and Bucky. A soldier walks up and says, "Mr. Rogers, sir, thank you so much for keeping our world safe from those monsters out there in outer space." Steve smiles. "I've been fighting for this country since I was a boy, and, well, I don't intend on stopping anytime soon. I was a young man like you when I started. I hope that you'll continue on to be as old and look as good as I do when you get to be my age. What's your name, soldier?" "Colonel Sam Wilson," played by Anthony Mackie. "I served in the Air Force for 10 years, but I feel like I lost so much time since I disappeared during the blip. I gotta ask, sir, how did you adjust to coming back and everything feeling so different?" We see Steve sit back and have a flashback to when Iron Man and Black Widow uncovered him from the ocean. Steve comes back to reality and says, "You know, I guess you can just take it one day at a time." "I understand. Well, I wanted to show you this footage of me testing out this new piece of technology. We call it the XO7. As Sam tries to pull out his phone, a woman's voice interrupts the conversation. "Captain Rogers, Mr. Barnes, how wonderful it is to have you in DC. And perfect timing as well. My name is Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. I'm the Director of Homeland Security, and I'm actually here on behalf of President O'Brien and Vice President Ross." We then see Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. "Vice President Ross? As in Thaddeus Ross?" "Yes, Captain Rogers, a lot changed during the blip. I guess you were too busy doing whatever it is you did to realize the changes. I'm actually here to invite you and Mr. Barnes to a signing ceremony tomorrow. Congress has decided to pass a repeal of the Sokovia Accords, and President O'Brien intends to sign it into law tomorrow. We'd love to have you at the ceremony. I know you and the Vice President have had your disagreements in the past, but trust me, it would be super symbolic and meaningful to the American people to have two of their greatest heroes join us for the big day." She hands Steve a card, smiles, and walks away. Steve looks at Bucky and says, "We need to talk." See the two men walk away as Sam watches. Cut to a hotel room that night where we see Rogers walking around with Bucky sitting on a bed. "I just don't get it," says Steve. "Why would Ross want both of us to be at the ceremony tomorrow? Something doesn't feel right about this, Buck. It just doesn't." "Steve, I know this is going to sound a little ironic coming from me, but maybe you're living in the past a bit too much. It's been years since you and Ross had your issues over the Accords, and now the people have spoken. They want us out there to fight on their behalf without any interference from the government. You've spent way too much time worrying about this. Heck, you didn't even realize the man became vice president. In my defense, most of the news was focused on the blip. Politics sort of became an afterthought. Steve, we should go. This is meaningful to the American people, and besides, you are the guy now. If the Avengers ever have to get back into action, you're going to be the new Tony. Buck, please. I told you, I don't want to talk about the Avengers or Tony. Not yet. But I guess you're right. I need to stop living in the past and give people a chance to change. But I can go ahead and say, I'm going to have dinner plans tomorrow night, so don't plan on us grabbing dinner after. Bucky chuckles. Ooh, Grandpa has a date tomorrow with her? Steve rolls his eyes as he gets into bed. Who are you calling Grandpa, oldie? Good night. We cut to the next day in front of the White House. We see multiple people sitting in chairs as they await the president and members of his cabinet to arrive in order to sign the bill repealing the Sokovia Accords. In the crowd, we see Sam Wilson eagerly awaiting the signing. Right outside the White House, we see Steve, Bucky, and Valentina standing together as Val looks at the two and says, I'm thrilled that you both decided to attend the signing today. This is going to mean so much to the American people. Suddenly we watch as President O'Brien, played by Robert Redford, and Vice President Ross, played by Harrison Ford, walk out from the Oval Office. O'Brien looks at Steve and Bucky and says, Well, well, if it isn't Captain America and Buford Barnes. He shakes their hands as Bucky stands stunned. Ross walks by the two and nods. As Val motions for the duo to follow, Rogers looks at Bucky and says, Let's not get left behind, Buford. We watch as the group walks up on stage as President O'Brien walks up to the microphone. Well, hello there, my fellow Americans. I'm thrilled to be here today in Washington, AC. As Cap and Bucky look at each other, O'Brien laughs. Whoops, silly me. I'm in D.C. We are here today for me to sign into law the repeal of the Latveria Accords. Whoops, sorry, I meant Sokovia Treaty. Bucky whispers into Steve's ear. I know you and I are old, but this guy is borderline senile. O'Brien continues. Now, let's let the festivities begin. As O'Brien says this, we hear a large crashing sound as projectiles begin flying at the crowd and towards the president. We see Steve dive on top of O'Brien to protect him as we watch Val and Ross casually walk away. Suddenly, we see a woman in a green suit scream, Bucky Barnes, I am Anaconda, played by Gwendoline Christie. And along with my fellow members of the Serpent Society, we are here to destroy all that you and your country hold dear. As you killed our leader, Sidewinder. Suddenly watch as 5 other costumed individuals move beside her and begin to descend on the ceremony. We watch as Barnes jumps from the podium and comes face to face with Rattler, played by Crispin Glover, who says, This is for our leader, Barnes. Bucky fights back and says, I don't even know what you're talking about. We watch as FBI agents are getting killed by Black Mamba, played by Daniela Melchior, and Princess Python, played by Isa Gonzalez. As we see Constrictor, played by Dominic Sherwood, charging for the podium, we see a man with wings swoop down and kick him out of the way. The man is revealed to be Falcon, the alter ego of Sam Wilson, who says, You want to get to the president? You're going to have to get through me first. Constrictor smiles. Works for me. We then see Anaconda running towards Steve and the president. Steve stands up and begins fighting Anaconda. Steve says, Hold on a minute. Who are you and what do you want with the president? Anaconda smiles. You have no idea, Rogers. We aren't really here just for Barnes or the president. But if you want to be collateral damage, you can continue to stand in our way. 3 bodies on our ledger is just another day at the office, and there's more to come. We watch as the fight between Steve and Anaconda continues on. Anaconda eventually punches Steve so hard in his shoulder he screams. Bucky hears this and yells, Steve! We then watch as Bucky grabs Rattler by the hand, twists it, and breaks his hand. We watch as Viper, played by Sophie Turner, screams, Rattler is hurt, retreat! We then watch as all of the members of the Serpent Society begin to run away. Anaconda stands over an injured Captain America who is still positioning himself in front of President O'Brien to protect him, and Anaconda raises her fist to strike him, but slowly places it to her side and says, This isn't over. He'll pay. Both of them will. We'll get our revenge. Watch as Anaconda runs away as Bucky and Falcon run over towards Steve and the President and begin checking on them. We quickly cut to the Serpent Society as they're making their way underground. Anaconda screams at Viper, Why call for us to retreat? We could have killed both the President and Captain America right then and there. Viper looks angry. Because our teammate was hurt. We can't just keep fighting when one of our own is injured on the battlefield. Watch as Rattler, who is being helped underground by Constrictor and Black Mamba, is in agonizing pain. Anaconda glares at Viper. Who cares? We're not a team. We're not a family. We're soldiers. If one of us dies, one of us dies. Big whoop. Next time, I'm not retreating. I'm finishing the job. As we watch Anaconda storm away, we see Princess Python pat Viper on the back. Anaconda's right. But you did the heroic thing. You attempted to save the life of your fellow soldier, and, at least to me, That's admirable. Fortunately, King Cobra will not be pleased with this development. Regardless of what he says when he finds out what occurred, please, I want you to remember that you did the right thing out there. Come now, we must go. We then watch as Viper and Princess Python continue down the underground path toward the Serpent Society's secret lair. Cut to later that night as we see Steve with a bandaged arm leading Bucky and Sam to a secret military institution right outside of Washington, D.C. Cap looks back at the two and says, "This way, our informant is just up ahead." As we see Cap going ahead of the others, Bucky looks at Sam and says, "I'm glad Cap allowed you to join the team until this whole thing is settled. Great fighting back there. What's that thing called again? The XO7? Thanks, man. Yeah, the XO7 Falcon. I was part of a military technology pilot program during my time with the Air Force. I was the only one who really got a grasp on all of its capabilities, so I was able to keep it and continue tinkering with it when I retired in case I ever got called back into duty. But with the likes of you and Cap, I don't think I'll ever be the kind of soldier they want to send back out on the battlefield. Don't sell yourself short. You're great out there. Steve and I are practically fossils, so I don't really know how much longer it will be before we both break into tons of tiny little pieces. Regardless, sentiment stays the same. Happy to have you on the team, Sam. Please, when we're doing business, you can call me Falcon." Cap waves at the duo and says, "In here, come on, we have a lot to get through." As the group walks inside, a lady says, "You're late." As Cap smiles, he says, "Sharon, thank you for meeting us tonight. This is urgent, and I would appreciate any information you have on the Serpent Society. It would greatly help us out." The informant is revealed to be Sharon Carter, played by Emily Van Zant, who says, "Well, the Serpent Society is an underground villain organization who have been around for a while now. They've been mainly low-level crooks, but post-Blip, they've gotten more active and set their sights on bigger targets. About a month ago, they tried to attack the Smithsonian, but were quickly defeated by the remaining Armor Legion drone supplied to us by Colonel Rhodes." Rhodey? Yup, after everything happened with Tony, he decided to come back and work with the U.S. Armed Forces as an advanced weapons supplier. He is off on some other mission as we speak, but he has been a huge help around here. Anyways, back to the Serpent Society. Based on the information you provided me, they appear to be upset about the death of their former leader, Seth Volker. He called himself the Sidewinder, and from the information I could gather, he was killed by the Winter Soldier as part of a Hydra hit back in the day. Sam and Cap look at Bucky, who puts his head down. "I'm sorry, I truly don't remember a Seth Volker. If any of this is my fault, I sincerely apologize." Cap nods as Sam pats Bucky on the back. Cap turns to Sharon and says, "Okay, so who's a part of this group?" Sharon begins to give a rundown of each member. Anaconda, the alias of Blanche Shazitsky, a former Roxxon special agent who was given a Roxxon-developed version of the super soldier serum. It didn't work necessarily as it was intended to, but she did gain increased strength throughout the test. She packs a deadly punch and is a skilled hand-to-hand combatant, as you saw for yourself, Steve. Rattler, the alias of Gustav Kruger, a Polish scientist who was fascinated with seismic energy and invention. He attempted to merge these two passions and accidentally permanently affixed a bionic amplifier to his back, which he calls a tail. The tail gives him the ability to create shockwaves and vibrations. He is dangerous in small places, so be careful if you end up one-on-one with him. Black Mamba, the alias of Tanya Seeley, a former swimsuit model who was involved in an accident while performing a photo shoot which subjected her to a psycho-altering toxin that altered her DNA and gave her increased strength, durability, and even the power to briefly create illusions. She's not as powerful as Anaconda, but many have fallen victim to her charm and ended up dead as a result. Constrictor, the alias of Frank Payne, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and weapons manufacturer who became fascinated with Anton Vanko and decided to create whips which exuded from the same electric power as a Crimson Dynamo suit did. He is not as strong as Anaconda or Black Mamba, but he is skilled physically and is able to move around quite nimbly for someone of his size. Viper, the alias of Orphelia Sarkisson, the daughter of a former Hydra commanding officer who, despite cutting all ties with the organization, still refers to herself as Madam Hydra. Viper is the most inexperienced of the group, but she is a proud owner of many durable armors, such as one which allows her to walk through a room filled with toxic fumes without causing her to so much as cough. She is the run of the group, but don't be fooled. She was trained by Hydra since she was a kid and is skilled in hand-to-hand combat. While she has not shown her skills off much since joining the team, she should not be taken lightly. Princess Python, the alias of Zelda Du Bois. She's a former member of Tybalt's traveling circus of crime and is actually a former associate of your pal Clint. She left the circus after expressing a growing frustration with the lack of leadership shown by Tybalt, but found her way to the Serpent Society shortly thereafter. She's a second in command, and while she does not possess much in the realm of physical strength, she's a skilled snake charmer who also knows her way around weaponry. But the final member of the group, the leader, is King Cobra. We come back to the underground hideout of the Serpent Society as we hear a man screaming, "You all had one simple job. Kill the Winter Soldier and the senile old man, and you once again failed to deliver." We see the 5 Serpent Society members minus Rattler, who is getting his hand fixed by a machine, repeat in unison, "We are sorry, King Cobra, sir." The man is revealed to be Klaus Voorhees, otherwise known as King Cobra, played by Sam Spurrell, who says, "Viper, please step forward." We watch as Viper gulps and steps forward as King Cobra grabs her by the head. "You jeopardized the mission in order to save Rattler from getting killed by the Winter Soldier, when Anaconda had a clear path to annihilate the President and Captain America?" "I'm sorry, honorable leader." We see King Cobra sigh. "I will forgive this transgression because of the honorable decision you made, but jeopardizing the mission like this again will result in a harsher punishment." We see Viper bow as Anaconda steps forward and yells, "Hold on now, little runt here cost us everything. I thought the code is that we die for the cause, not sit around and play friend with everyone on the team." "Silence, Anaconda. I'm the leader of this operation, and what I say goes. This is a mere setback to our ultimate goal, to recover what is ours and get revenge for our fallen founder." Anaconda huffs, "You've always been soft on Viper." King Cobra turns around and gets in Anaconda's face. "One more word from you, and I will make sure you never speak again. Did I remind you what happened to Death Adder when he talked back to me one too many times?" Anaconda nods as King Cobra says, "I will meet with the boss tomorrow to explain the situation and see what our next steps should be. For now, the boss and the employer will hopefully be happy with the demonstration we put on today. So please, get rest and be prepared to get back to work as quickly as possible." We see King Cobra walk away into a compartment in the lair as the others stand in silence. Come back to the military institution where we see Steve, Bucky, Sam, and Sharon standing around. Steve is thinking, "So, Voorhees was friends with this Seth Volker and assumed control of the Serpent Society when the Winter Soldier killed him. Right. The two are best friends, so it makes sense why he is so uptight about getting revenge on Bucky. So this is a pretty open and shut case then, right? The Serpent Society's after Bucky, and they're gonna keep coming after him." "It's not that simple, actually. I'd love to know what the group was going after in the museum the night they broke in. For the time being, yes, it seems that Bucky is their main target, but President O'Brien might be a side target or a co-main target as well." "Well, I have to make a call. Sharon, could you please keep me posted on the President's plans? We'll make sure to be nearby if there's another attack, and I hate to say this, but we're going to need to reschedule dinner." Sharon nods as Bucky speaks up. "I have a call to make as well, but let's hope we can figure this out sooner rather than later." Cut to the next morning as we see King Cobra walking through an underground tunnel as we see a metallic-looking room surrounded by guards. King Cobra nods as the guards move aside and open up the door. King Cobra walks inside as we see Val sitting at a metallic table. She says, "Well, if it isn't my favorite disappointment." King Cobra sighs. "I'm sorry, Director Val." Val sighs as we see her place a giant object on the metallic table, and King Cobra begins to fumble his words. The Serpent Crown." "Mm-hmm. The thing you attempted to break into the Smithsonian for. I haven't forgotten. Remind me. Why do you want this thing again?" "It's the ancient crown that the worshippers of the ancient god Set used during their ceremonies. Seth was obsessed with finding that object." "Well, I don't remember. I was a bit busy when you told me. What was our deal?" King Cobra looks down as Val stands up. "I would give you this stupid thing in exchange for O'Brien's life. Honestly, why is hiring people to perform a job so hard? especially when revenge is in play. I mean, come on. Let me reiterate. 1. You kill President O'Brien so Vice President Ross can become president. I mean, sheesh. O'Brien's a senile old man, but his heart must be working overtime or something, because that man will just not die. 2. You get to exact revenge against the Winter Soldier for killing your friend. 3. You killing the president places the public in a state of fear and panic, and they lose faith in their precious heroes. And 4. We gain control of the public like what they're doing in New York. Man, that Mayor Fisk, he really has his grip on the people. I'm sorry, ma'am. My associates will not fail you again. Val laughs. Oh, they better not. You can kiss this crown goodbye. President O'Brien is on full security lockdown today, but he's going to be speaking at an elementary school tomorrow, so how about you and your team prepare to catch him there? When he's speaking to kids? Isn't that a bit harsh? Did I stutter? Seriously, I thought you were professional. A job is a job. I expect perfection from my hires. Yes, ma'am. As we see King Cobra stand up to leave, Val sits down and says, Oh, Cobra, by the way, I expect that you will get off your behind and get involved if your team isn't capable of getting the job done, especially if you want this piece of junk, okay? King Cobra sighs as he walks out of the room. Cut to later that day as we see Steve standing in a field alone. He checks his watch as he mutters to himself, it's not like him to be late. Suddenly he watches a giant Wakandan ship lands feet away from Steve, who smiles and says, Finally. See the Wakandan ship open up as members of the Dora Milaje walk out. Steve smiles and says, I appreciate you all delivering this to me on such short notice. Please make sure to tell the king I appreciate him. You can tell him yourself, says King T'Challa, played by Michael B. Jordan, as we see Steve smile and says, Your Majesty, I didn't expect this. Well, Captain Rogers, I wanted to hand-deliver this to you. We see T'Challa hand Steve a case. When he opens it, it is revealed to be a completely repaired shield. It wasn't easy, but we made sure it fit the original shape so it would remain capable in battle. Oh, we ensured that the color matched its original look as well. Steve smiles as he looks at the shield. He then looks up at T'Challa and says, I appreciate your help, T'Challa. But hey, we have a group of criminals attacking DC. The Black Panther might come in handy on our side. T'Challa laughs. I appreciate your invitation, Captain, but I will leave the fighting and protecting to you. Besides, we have heard reports of a woman who has gained the ability to change the weather based on the Golden Awakening. The Golden Awakening? T'Challa chuckles. You really need to watch the news, Captain. It was a pleasure seeing you. As I said, if the Avengers need me, you have my word I will be there. Steve smiles as he watches T'Challa and the Dora Milaje reboard the ship and fly away. Steve walks away as he shakes his head and says to himself, The Golden Awakening. What the heck is he talking about? We cut to the inside of Sam's apartment where we see Bucky sitting at a table with a bowl in front of him. So this gumbo is a Louisiana tradition. You can't claim you grew up in the Big Easy if your family doesn't have their own signature gumbo recipe. This one was made by my grandmother. She gave me the recipe before I headed off to fight the good fight. I used to make it for members of my squadron back in the day. It would make me feel like I was back home, and it would always lift the spirits of my team. Watch as Sam pours a bit of gumbo into the bowl for Bucky to try. As we watch Bucky take a bite, he has trouble swallowing it and begins fanning his mouth. Dang, this is spicy, dude. Sam laughs. Yep, again, Cajun spices, brother. Cajun spices. We watch Steve enter the room and says, So when were you guys going to tell me about this Golden Awakening? What? How haven't you heard of it? It's been everywhere. I guess people are calling these guys mutants now? Not complaining. They might make our job easier since they seem to have abilities on their own. Or more difficult. They decide to use their powers for evil. Steve sighs. That's a discussion for a different day. We need to figure out what we're going to do tomorrow. As Steve says this, Sharon walks into the door and says, President O'Brien is going to be visiting with students on elementary school. You need to figure out what you're going to do, Cap. I know the Serpent Society is going to attack, and you need a plan of action. Sam butts in. Sorry, but if we know the Serpent Society is going to attack, why don't we just keep the President in a secure location or something until we have this taken care of? The President is committed to showing that he isn't going to be scared or set back by thugs like the Serpent Society. He wants to continue to paint a strong image for the USA. even if it means putting his life in danger. So, Cap, I'm going to ask you again. Do you have a plan? Steve looks down. Sam, Bucky, we have to be there tomorrow and be surrounding the president at all times. I think it's best to have two of us on the inside of the building while one of us stands guard outside. Bucky, did you manage to make your call? I did. Don't know how it will help, but we will see. You and Sam get the inside tomorrow. I'll take the out. Cap nods as he looks at Sam and Bucky and says, I appreciate you all doing this. Let's make sure nothing happens to the president. Sharon smiles as we see her walk out of the door. Cut to the next day as we see Bucky sitting outside the elementary school keeping lookout. Inside we see President O'Brien sitting in a classroom reading to a group of school children. As we see outside the classroom, Sam and Steve are sitting to an area off to the side. As we see Steve scrolling through Sam's phone, he says, So, this Spotify app, it has every single song you could possibly want. All I have to do is search it and I can listen to it? Sam chuckles. You really did miss a lot, even though you've been out of the ice for a few years now. I guess so, but I have to say, modern music is just not really my thing. Anyways, Sam laughs. If you don't mind, I do have a question for you. Sure. Well, I was wondering, how do you get over losing a friend in the heat of battle? There were a few guys that I can just picture, so vividly. One minute they were right there in front of me. I could reach out and touch them, and the next they were gone. They left behind their parents, husbands, wives, children. I can't help thinking about if I could have done something different, if I could have stepped in, if I could have stopped what was going to happen, if they would still be here. I don't know. How do you deal with that? Steve sighs. You know, Sam, I'm still trying to figure that part out as well. You got someone you lost? Yeah, this dude drove me crazy. We disagreed on a lot, but he was a good leader, all things considered. He was selfish but selfless at the same time. He cared about himself, but would give his life for others at the same time. You know, my biggest regret is that I didn't talk to him more. Ask him about what his father was like. Ask him about his wife and how things were going. Ask him how to be the kind of leader that he ended up becoming. As we see Steve look down, Sam pats him on the back and says, I'm sorry, Cap. Here, how about we put on some music to lift your spirits? I have some classic rock. Steve smiles and looks at the phone and says, Nah, I was eyeing this one. As he says this, we hear an explosion outside as Bucky clicks his earpiece and says, They're here. Steve looks at Sam and says, Suit up. We then cut to the Serpent Society lair as we see King Cobra and Princess Python watching security footage of the elementary school as King Cobra mutters, Let's see how they do. As he says this, Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry begins playing as we watch Bucky Barnes fighting Rattler and Black Mamba outside as Sam fights Constrictor and Steve fights Anaconda, who have breached the school building. We watch as the battle goes on as Bucky is getting overpowered by Rattler, who grabs him by the neck and says, This is for breaking my hand. As we see Rattler begin to squeeze Bucky's neck, an explosion hits Rattler and Bucky looks up and says, Hey Cap, the call worked. We then watch as drones from the Iron Legion arrive and begin shooting Rattler and Black Mamba, when suddenly War Machine, played by Don Cheadle, lands next to Bucky and says, Well, I guess I'm just in time. Bucky nods as we watch War Machine fly into battle and fight Rattler as the Iron Legion continues to fight Black Mamba. Bucky looks on as suddenly Viper tackles him. They land behind the bushes in front of the school. As Bucky attempts to push her off, she says, Whoa, hold on. Bucky Barnes, I want to talk. I'm going to give you 5 seconds before I rip your arm off. You were a pawn in Hydra's eyes. Yes, I told you 5 seconds when you killed Seth. It wasn't you acting, was it? It was because of Hydra. Bucky calms down and says, Yeah, it was. I didn't have anything to do with it. I was not me. I was being controlled. I don't even remember killing him. If I did, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything because he's gone, but it wasn't me that killed him. I understand. My father was killed by Hydra when I was a little girl, even though he was one of their top officers. They took me in and trained me after they killed him. I know what kind of evil they take pleasure in committing. I know what they do to good people. I know you're not an awful person, Bucky Barnes. You're a victim. I want to stop all this senseless fighting. I just had to make sure I was correct in my suspicions. Cut back to the fight between War Machine and Rattler as Rattler rips off his helmet and says, "Okay, that's it. We're about to end this once and for all. Iron Legion, stand down. I will take him." As Rhodes says this, an Iron Legion drone shoots out a lethal miniature Jericho missile that hits Rattler and kills him. Viper looks up and witnesses Rattler's death as she looks at Bucky and says, "I have to go, but I promise we'll end this." Cut inside as we see Falcon fighting with Constrictor. As he begins to get the upper hand, Constrictor falls on the ground as Sam begins smashing him with his Falcon wings. Eventually, Constrictor removes his helmet and mutters, "Okay, I give up. Just stop." Falcon stops and screams, "Why are you trying to kill the president? Why?" Constrictor laughs and says, "Oh, you have no idea." Suddenly, we hear a gunshot as Sam, Cap, and Anaconda all pause to see a Secret Service agent standing in the doorway of the classroom with a gun showing fresh smoke. He speaks into a walkie-talkie and says, "One of the suspects is down. I repeat, the suspect is down." Cap looks on in shock as Falcon looks at the Secret Service agent. Anaconda hears a voice in her ear. "Anaconda, Constrictor and Rattler have been taken out. Get Viper and Black Mamba and get out of there." Anaconda snarls, "I am almost done with the mission. I said stand down and retreat, Anaconda. Now." Anaconda turns to Cap and says, "Your friend still has blood on his hands. And now the government has more." We see Anaconda grab a smoke ball from her suit and chucks it on the ground. When the smoke clears, she and the remaining members of the Serpent Society are gone. We cut down to the Serpent Society lair where we see Anaconda smash a table as Black Mamba walks in with her head down. Princess Python goes to comfort her as we see Viper walk up to King Cobra, who looks stressed. She says, "I'd like to speak with our employer, if that's okay." Camera zooms in on King Cobra's face as we cut back to Sam's apartment. "She said it wasn't my fault, that Hydra caused me to act as the Winter Soldier. Cap. She doesn't appear to be in on this scheme. I'm still lost. Why did the Secret Service agent shoot him like that? We had him right where we wanted him. He could have been questioned." "Yeah, well, I'm still confused as to why my Iron Legion drone fired when I specifically told it to stand down. I've never had them malfunction quite like that before. I do have a question for you. I know we just met and all, but why trust the government with Stark's technology? Isn't that stuff supposed to be way farther advanced than any other military weaponry we have right now? I'm a weapons supplier. Stark got his start in the weapons business, and I agree with President O'Brien's strong stance on global security. I think Tony would have agreed with me about it as well. Regardless, we need to figure out what our next play is. Sure, the Serpent Society might be down 2 members, but that won't stop them from making their next move." "Cap's right. Yet again," says Sharon, who walks in the door. "I've been asked by the President's Chief of Staff that you all be called to monitor the President 24/7, starting as soon as possible." "Hold up, Sharon. What is your title within the government exactly?" "I'm an assistant to the Secretary of Defense. Are you accusing me of something, Sam? Working with the Serpent Society? I worked hard to get where I am." "Sharon, Sam, it's been a long day. Sharon, I'll take watch over President O'Brien tonight. The rest of you need to get some sleep, and you all can help out in the morning. Good work today, everyone." See Bucky and Rhodes head out the door. Sam looks to Sharon and says, "I'm sorry if my comment offended you in any way. It wasn't what I meant." Sharon chuckles. "Oh, don't worry. It shows a lot about you, Sam." As you watch Sharon walk away, Cap pats Sam on the back and says, "Don't worry about her. She's feisty, driven, just like her aunt." Sam smiles. "Hey, Cap, can I ask you something?" Steve nods as Sam turns to him. "That guy you were talking about earlier. It's Tony Stark, isn't it?" Steve stops and nods. "I thought so. The whole world hated him for a while, but then quickly fell in love with him after he saved them. I know how highly publicized your disagreement was with him, and I'm sure it wasn't easy taking orders from him when you had to work together. You know, Sam, I've led men into battle. I fought a man who destroyed his body to be like me. I fought a god, a robot set on world destruction, an alien from space who thought that half of us were better off dead. And every time I came face to face with those creatures, I appreciate it, Tony. Because while people called me captain, nobody knew how to lead the Avengers like Tony did. And I think about that every single day. How he managed to do it. Sam pats Steve on the back. Well, Steve, I think you are a great leader. I've looked up to you since I was a kid. My dad joined the Air Force because of how dedicated you were to defending this country, and I joined because of you both. Steve smiles and shakes Falcon's hand and says, "All right, Sam, get some rest. It's been a long day. I might have night duties, but you're going to be up after me, so it's going to be an early morning." Sam smiles as we see Steve leave Sam's apartment. We get to the underground tunnel where we see Viper walking through the tunnel alone as she goes to enter the metallic room from earlier. We watch as the guards move out of the way and open up the door. Inside we see Val sitting down with the serpent crown on the table. She smiles. "Oh, well, if it isn't Viper, or should I call you Madam Hydra?" Viper smiles and takes a seat. "You can call me Ophelia. I don't think I will be Viper much longer." Val smiles awkwardly and says, "Well, okay. Now, I've been told you wanted to meet with me. I typically don't meet with anyone besides the leader of the groups I've hired, but I'll make an exception this time around, so please, make it worth my time." "Well, Madam Val, I don't think that what we are doing is proper any longer. I know the underlying goal is to kill President O'Brien, but you sold this mission to our team as the opportunity to kill the Winter Soldier. I know what Bucky went through, and I know what the Winter Soldier did, and I know that Bucky didn't do all those evil things to Seth. He was a Winter Soldier because Hydra was making him do it. They created a monster, and Bucky was merely the vessel that they used to act. My father worked with Hydra and helped them create soulless killing machines, till they turned on him and showed that they were the soulless killing machine after all. And I'm afraid that if we continue down this path, we'll all become soulless killing machines. I still sometimes call myself Madam Hydra because I want to be better. I want to be better than what Hydra currently stands for. I've hated it all my life because of what Hydra did to me. I don't want to further their goal. It's a goal that ripped my life apart. Serpent Society has become a family to me, and I don't want to see that ended. I think you should relieve us of our duties." Watch as Val clenches her jaw and smiles. "Wow, what a powerful story. Thank you, dear. I'll consider it. Now, please, go on." Viper smiles as she stands up and turns around. We hear a gunshot as Viper stops in her tracks as we see Val holding a smoking gun. "How dare you come to me and tell me how to run my business? You think you're Madam Hydra? No, I'm Madam Hydra. But I'm better than Hydra. Hydra was messy with their recruits and their soldiers. I make sure mine follow me and do what they are told. And if they don't, well, you see what happens." We watch Viper turn around and attempt to run towards Val as Val continuously shoots her, killing her. Val looks at the guards as Viper hits the ground and says, "Remove the body. I don't want my floor getting stained." Then see Val pick up the phone and says, "King Cobra, I met with your associate. I didn't like her message. I'm leaving the underground passage open to lead you directly to the White House, and I expect this mission done tonight. I no longer care about the public image. I want him dead as soon as possible. If you fail to complete the mission, then you're all done for tonight." As Val hangs up the phone, she hits the table as we watch the serpent crown fall to the ground. "Oh crap!" screams Val as the crown lands on the ground unharmed. Val takes note of this, picks up the crown, and drops it again and again, but it does not break. Val looks at it and motions for one of her assistants to come forward. She says, "Take this thing to Dr. Clive. I want to find out what substance this thing is made of. It's super durable." Cut to the Serpent Society lair as we see King Cobra listening to the message from Val. He stands up and says, "Serpent Society, I want you all in my sight now." Watch as Princess Python, Anaconda, and Black Mamba all stand in line. Princess Python looks around and says, "Wait, where's Viper?" King Cobra gulps. "Well, our employer has pushed our assignment's due date to tonight. There's a secret passageway that we will take into the White House, and then we will kill the president." Black Mamba speaks up. "Sir, forgive me, but I thought this whole mission was about avenging your friend for what the Winter Soldier did to him." "Well, our plans have changed a bit from when we first started, but rest assured, after killing the president, the reward will be quite worth it." "Claws, I'm not going to ask again. Where is Viper? King Cobra clears his throat. Well, Viper met with our employer within the last little bit here, and she attacked our employer when they had a disagreement about the way in which we should progress with our mission. Our employer acted in self-defense and was forced to kill Viper. You liar, you and I both know Viper would never do that unprovoked. You set her up. This does not seem right, sir. I don't know if I can go through with this. Something just feels off about this whole mission. Anaconda laughs. Oh, please. We've been told from the very beginning that we were hired to kill. I don't care about a single one of you in here. Viper died. Big whoop. She's a casualty of our job. I, for one, am going to complete the mission. You all can stay back and cry about it all you want. We see Anaconda walk forward and nod at King Cobra, who nods back. Princess Python drops her stuff. Well, I am out. I've seen this kind of leadership before, and it is going to result in everyone getting killed. King Cobra chuckles and says, if you think I am anything like your little freak show circus you used to run around with, you're sorely mistaken. You're nothing without me, and you never will be. See Princess Python walk away as Black Mamba watches. King Cobra looks at her and says, well, you gonna come with us? Black Mamba turns around and walks away with Princess Python as King Cobra rolls his eyes. Anaconda chuckles and says, screw him, come on, we have a job to do. We cut to the outside of the White House where we see Steve standing on the outside in his uniform, watching the early morning atmosphere and ambiance of Washington. Sharon walks outside with coffee and hands it to him and says, it's 2 a.m. I thought you might need a bit of an energy boost. Even if you are a super soldier. Steve chuckles and takes a drink. You know, Sharon, Sam didn't mean anything to offend you earlier. Sharon rolls her eyes. Oh, I already moved on from that thing. That's the thing, Cap. People are always trying to have something to say. You just gotta let it roll off your back. Anyways, good luck. President appreciates the help. Oh, and he just signed the repeal of the Sokovia Accords in his office. So, there is a small victory in all of this at the very least. Steve smiles as we watch him finish his coffee and walk inside. Inside the Oval Office, we see President O'Brien talking with Director Val. He says, look, I know it's probably dangerous to keep doing all this stuff when I have those lunatics out there looking for me, but I'm not going to show any weaknesses. Plus, I have Avengers out there helping me now. Val shoots a grin. I understand, Mr. President, but are you sure you're not doing too much with your age and all? President O'Brien chuckles. Please, I've been doing this gig for a while now. I am more capable than ever. Suddenly we hear gunshots in the distance as a Secret Service agent screams, Mr. President, get down. Barricade the entrance. Cut to the hallway of the White House as we watch King Cobra and Anaconda walking down the hallway. They absolutely decimate every Secret Service agent as we see King Cobra as a masterful marksman who is easily able to evade oncoming gunshots and physical barrages. As the duo reaches the Oval Office entrance, we watch as Anaconda is hit from behind with Cap's shield. As it bounces back towards him, Cap says, that's enough. I don't know why you or your team want to kill the president, but as long as I can fight, you won't get anywhere close to him. King Cobra screams, you take the captain, I'll find a way in. We then watch Anaconda and Captain America engaging in a final showdown as King Cobra slowly works his way into the room. We watch Anaconda hit Cap's shield out of his grasp, and the two then engage in one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat. As King Cobra breaks into the Oval Office, we watch as he dodges massive fire from the Secret Service agents inside, as he quickly shoots and kills all of them, except for Val, who stands in the corner, watching King Cobra go to work. Finally, King Cobra stands over President O'Brien, who is lying on the ground. Steve looks inside and shouts, no! As he is being held in a headlock by Anaconda. Anaconda then reaches back and punches him so hard in the face that it knocks him out. Val looks at King Cobra and says, come on! Hurry up, do it! President O'Brien looks at Val when suddenly we hear a gunshot and see President O'Brien's hand hit the floor. Anaconda places Cap's knocked out body on the ground and screams for joy, as suddenly we watch King Cobra get shot multiple times by Val, who reaches into her pocket and pulls out a walkie-talkie. I've killed the man responsible. President O'Brien is dead. I repeat, the president is dead. Anaconda looks shocked as Val points her gun at Anaconda, who quickly runs away from the scene. Cap slowly regains consciousness as he sees President O'Brien's lifeless body lying on the floor. Cut to hours later as Steve, Sharon, Bucky, Sam, and Rhodes are sitting in the Oval Office as we watch Vice President Thaddeus Ross getting sworn in as the new President of the United States. The Supreme Court Justice officially announces the title of President Thaddeus Ross. Cap has a tear in his eye. We cut to later in the day as we see President Ross standing in the Oval Office watching a television. There is still blood on the ground from where President O'Brien was shot as Val enters the office. Ross speaks up. Did you hear about Worthington's boy? He's part of this whole Gold Awakening deal. So sad to hear that his son became a freak. He was always such a good donor. Let's hope he keeps it up. Val awkwardly chuckles and says, Well, sir, we did it. How does it feel? Well, I wouldn't be here without you, but it does feel a bit odd. I'm sure I'll get used to it. Well, sir, with you being the president, I think it's time we reconsider some of our projects. If you're going to talk with me about your stupid Thunderbolts idea, scrap it. But, sir, I know that stupid Serpent whatever was supposed to be your little test run, and safe to say it was a disaster. You'll never be able to make super soldiers who obey your every command, Valentina. Face it, it's a dumb idea, so just scrap it. Val looks disappointed and says, Okay, well, we still have that Weapons X project, the vibranium invasion. How about you just leave that to me for now? I want to mull over a few things, but in time, we'll make our next move. We see Val pout as Ross turns around and says, Cheer up. I can't have my new CIA director looking so upset, especially with their promotion. Val smiles and she says, Oh, that reminds me. Dr. Clive, come in here, please. Then watches Dr. Jeffrey Clive, played by Brian Stepanek, run into the room. Val continues. The Serpent Crown, which I used to entice the Serpent Society to act on my behalf, is made out of a rare substance, according to Dr. Clive. Take it away. Well, sir, this substance turns out to be an incredibly rare steel alloy. The United States government tested it a bit during World War II, but nothing substantial ever came from it. Well, what's it called, son? Adamantium. We know how strong and versatile vibranium is, sir, but this substance is vastly more capable in terms of strength and durability. Ross chuckles. Ah, good. Destroy the crown and keep the material on standby. I think we might have some potential uses for it in the future. We cut to the abandoned military facility as we see a small plane preparing to take Steve and Bucky back to New York. Steve places his shield in the back as he says, Are you sure you don't want to come back? We could use you. James Rhodes laughs. Cap, I think I'm fine being here for now, but if you ever need me, I'll be ready. Steve shakes Rhodes' hand as he goes over to Sharon and says, Sharon, thanks for all your help. I'm sorry we didn't get to go on a date. As he says this, Sharon grabs him and the two kiss. As the kiss ends, Sharon smiles and says, Next time, Steve. We'll do it next time. Steve then turns to Sam, who says, I hate to see Captain America and Bucky leave. And even though we didn't win, I'm grateful to have fought alongside you, Cap. I learned a lot. So, what is next for the great Captain America? Steve smiles. Well, I'm going to see how much I can take from Tony. Do some studying, training, and seriously think about getting the gang back together again. We're going to need to be ready if something like this happens again. Sam smiles. Well, if you ever need anything, I'll always be there to help. Well, Falcon, I was actually hoping that you would come join us. The Avengers need a strong, capable soldier like yourself. Sam looks shocked but smiles and says, Cap, it's an honor to serve alongside you, and it always will be. Can I gather my stuff? No need. We'll get it shipped. Come on. I could use a good sparring partner when I get back. Time to go non-stop until I'm truly back and above my old form. See Sam and Steve get in the plane as Steve speaks to the pilot as he sits next to Bucky and says, Yeah, put my favorite on. We need some good pick-me-up music. As the plane flies off, we hear Johnny B. Good play once again. There are two post-credit scenes. In the first post-credit scene, we cut to a Skrull planet where we hear someone screaming as multiple Skrulls watch on. We see the Skrull at the front of the group is Kalert, played by Kingsley Ben-Adir. who watches as a Skrull walks up to him and says, "Do you really think kidnapping the son of Queen Anel was the right idea?" "Well, the prince did not pass the Super Skrull experiment. So, just like his mother's leadership, he's a failure. I want you to prepare a pod and send Prince Doric away. We will continue testing the serum until it is perfected." The camera pans as we see Prince Doric, played by Nicholas Hamilton, who is in pain following being tested on for the Super Skrull project. In the second post-credit scene, we cut to Atlantis as we see a man in chains. He looks beaten and weak. The camera pans as the man is revealed to be Namor, played by Raul Castillo, who coughs as the camera cuts to the throne of Atlantis, which is being inhabited by a Tuma, played by Alex Livanali, who says, "I never get tired of sitting in this throne." Now, on to bigger and better things. And that is Captain America Serpent Society. I know that this was a more down-to-earth, grounded story compared to some of the other stories we've gotten, especially the previous two with the Wasp and Doctor Strange. But again, I think it's important to sort of see how Steve is feeling post-snap and post-losing Tony, especially because he is the new leader of the Avengers. So I hope we got some insight into that while also exploring the Serpent Society, which I didn't want to make too powerful of villains because, again, they are really just supposed to be the test run for the Thunderbolts project, which has been scrapped by President Ross for now, but we'll see what happens. And of course, we do now have a new national leader in President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, and he will definitely play a role in the upcoming projects, especially the next project, which the next few projects will be dealing with things on a much grander scale. So if you thought this one was a little bit more grounded, you haven't seen anything yet. But anyways, guys, this has been Rebooted MCU Phase 4 Part 4. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next Wednesday for the next installment. Take care.